I asked folks to come in into court so I could just announce my decision in the motions to suppress the statements. Apologize that it took so long to get something out to you. This was a difficult decision, rather complicated in my view. Maybe perhaps the law isn't so complicated, but it was just a difficult call to make. So I want to start by just going through on the motion to suppress the statements. I think it was entitled on 10/15 and 10/16 of 2015. I'd like to start by just reviewing what I think is somewhat obvious, but the portions of the interrogation that I considered to be noteworthy in trying to decide whether the statement should be suppressed pursuant to the statute or pursuant to Article 1, Section 12, general voluntariness notions. The interrogation appears to have started about 10 minutes to 10 in the morning, 9:50 a.m. on October 15th. And bear with me, this is going to take a little bit of time to get through. And about an hour later, about 10:40 in the morning, the police first indicate, and I know we're working off of two different transcripts here, so I'm working out of the one that are part 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then each part has separate page numbers. And is there? I'm sure we have that in the record here. Does anybody know which exhibit that is, just so I can make clear on my record what we're talking about?
I don't. It's a defense exhibit. I just don't remember which one it is.
Okay. So whichever defense exhibit was offered, that's the one.
Exhibit B.
Okay, Exhibit B. So at that time, at around 10:49 in the morning, approximately, according to my reading of the timestamp as I reviewed the video, and on page 49 of part 1 of the transcript, the defendant was first told that if the police could get answers, that everything would turn out for the best for everybody. And there was quite a bit of talk during that time about how important the police considered it for the families to have answers. Around that time, or prior to that time, the defendant was confronted with the fact that the police believed or knew that he had committed multiple murders, and they had indicated that they knew what had occurred, they knew he was the murderer, they were just wanting an explanation for why. And the defendant had started a process that went on for close to 3 hours where he denied knowing anything about the murder. The police indicate, though, about an hour into it, that it would be best for everyone if he would confess. And then, not long after that, the defendant is told a little bit after 11 in the morning that essentially the jury will not react favorably to him if he continues that stance. He's told, I'm quoting from the transcript, "How do you think it's going to sound to whoever sits, on the panel to hear the facts?" They explain about life in the 80s. They hear about what the physical evidence is that links you to these three, and then your next response is, "I can't explain it." They're not be a sick in there, but they will not react favorably, is what he's told. Later, or soon after that, there gets to be quite a bit of appealing to perhaps the defendant's religious or moral beliefs. He is told that God wants him to confess, essentially, and that he needs to atone for his sins. And there's reference about how he will be carrying this to his grave, and that won't work out very well for him. That's at around 11:15 in the morning. Then it continues to deny remembering anything about the murders. Then, at about 11:20, and on page 65 of Part 1, something which I think is somewhat interesting and is tied to some of my later findings here that I'll get to in a minute. They're showing the defendant some photographs, and they're continuing to show him some photographs, and he's indicating it would help him to look at the photographs, and they're sort of saying, well, why would it help? And he says, well, maybe, quote, well, maybe to get me to understand on what it is you're trying to get from me. Then, at about 11:45 in the morning, so we're now about almost 2 hours after the interrogation started, not quite 2 hours after the interrogation started. We're actually about 11:24 in the morning, excuse me. So that would have been about an hour and a half after the interrogation started. Things turned hostile, especially with respect to Detective Hopper's interaction with the defendant. She became more aggressive, the tone of her voice became more aggressive, and the defendant was accused of playing games at that point, and was essentially told that it's going to sound bad to not be able to explain the DNA. They take a break at about 11:45, and his phone rings shortly after noon, and he's asked to turn his phone off. I believe that was a phone call that he realized was coming in from his sister. So then, at about 12:20 in the afternoon, and now I'm on to Part 2, and obviously the interrogation continues. Generally, they continue to show the defendant photographs. He continues to deny having any memory of what took place. And at about 12:20, on page 15, is when I think it's when the defense sort of refers to the last 20 minutes before the break proceeding, when the defendant started making admissions, and that is when Detective Lawrence says, and I think that's what we're trying to help you with today. In all honesty, I can't impress upon you enough that this train is moving down the tracks, and when I say this train, I mean this case. And soon after that, he says, I would rather see you as a passenger than get run over by it, because as a passenger, you still have some control over your future. But when I say I don't, when you say I don't know what you're talking about, I don't remember, other people determine the course of your future for you. So he seems to be indicating that the defendant would be able to have some favorable impact on how the case will turn out. Sort of a vague notion, and then I don't think, obviously, the detective is telling him literally he'll be run over by the train, but certainly it'll be a situation that the defendant will be harmed if he continues to have that stance. Following that exchange, on page 16 of part 2 of the transcript, Detective Hopper says, let's try to think about the future for a minute. Let's think about a year and a half from now when you're sitting in a courtroom and we're showing these pictures and jurors are listening to your words. Say, well, I'm sorry, I don't know what to tell you, it just doesn't ring a bell, and she goes on to say, after being confronted with several different cases of murdering women, you know what a person thinks on the outside. He doesn't remember because he's killed so many of them. So she's giving him the message that everyone's going to think that he's, I guess, a serial killer, or he's killed so many people, that's why he doesn't remember. And that's when she first tells him, in relatively hostile tone, that people are going to think, that he's a monster. And then they tell him that today is the day for him to convince people that he's not a monster, and maybe circumstances in his life led to these decisions. And this kind of viewing him as a monster comes up on a number of occasions throughout the interview, and they're getting more confrontational, especially Detective Hopper. So, let's see. And on page 19 of that part of the transcript, he's accused of victimizing the victims again at about 12:30 or 12:25, in that range in the morning. They tell him that continuing to say he doesn't remember is a complete falsehood. It makes him an even bigger monster. And Detective Hopper says, you did, and when he denies killing women, he says, you did, and the line that you're running about, you don't remember, or now you didn't do it, you know what you're doing to them again, you're victimizing them again, and that right there, my friend, is what makes you a monster. If you were to come in here and say, you know what, I had a rough childhood, I was abused, I had my problems, I had anger issues, we all understand those things. And then at about 12:28, on page 20 of the transcript, this sort of line from Detective Hopper continues. At one point she says, you're doing it to them again, and that right there, that will be bad for you in the future, and I want you to think out to the future, this will be bad for you, so don't victimize them again. You've already taken them away from their loved ones. And Detective Hopper then says, well then, you are a monster, my friend, in response to saying he doesn't remember, and you deserve what's coming to you. I hope you get every bit of it, because I think you're a nice guy to talk to, very pleasant, but I'm telling you right now, you are a monster, and we will do everything we can to make sure you spend as much time in prison as we can put you there for, because that's what's coming. You have the power to help these people, and you've taken their lives already. Help them over. And then he continues to deny. Then Detective Lawrence, I hate to sort of characterize this as good cop, bad cop, but in some ways it sort of plays out that way. Detective Lawrence starts in a theme, and I don't think it started here, but it was sort of an ongoing theme throughout, which is help us help you, and that the case will be better for you if you give us what we want here. And he says we actually care about not only these victims' families, but how this case proceeds for you. Regardless of what you tell us, it doesn't matter what you tell us, there are charges facing you. The thing is, in the future, how this case progresses, how people view you is very important to us as well as to the victim's family. And then they tell him that he has the capacity to fix this. And make the case better for himself is essentially what they're saying. Soon after that, on page 22 of the transcript, the detective Lawrence said, "We are giving you now the opportunity to explain how you felt, why you did what you did, how it got to that point, and this is really the only chance you're going to get to do that. That is going to have meaning, because beyond this, it's going to look like you're cooking a story." And they're trying to kind of give him an alternative way of viewing this thing that would be better for him. And then on page 23, they inform him, and to say, "I don't know," is just like my partner says, it causes other people to view this as being worse than it is. We've dealt with a couple of people that truly have no remorse for anything they've ever done in life. They are truly evil people. So they're implying that he will be viewed as evil unless he makes admissions. That's at about 12:35. Then at about 12:40 in the morning, after giving him some alternative theories about what would make the case look better, either that he had sexual dysfunction or that he had anger problems, and he continues to deny, Detective Lawrence says, "We are getting to the point, and I don't mean to say it like this, but it kind of gets there. It kind of gets there. We are now at the point in this process where we are literally trying to save you from you, because when you go down this road and say, 'I don't remember, I didn't do it,' you make it worse. And you finally sit back and say, 'You know what, guys? All right, I don't remember some things, but here's what I do remember.' That gets it to the point where now we're working together to help these victims' family." And then Detective Lawrence tells him that they are going to spend as much time as needed be to get to that point. And then he brings back the train analogy at about 12:40 in the morning, and he says, "It's because we want you to recognize you're trying to do the right thing for you. We're trying to do the right thing for you and for these victims' family, because, as I previously said, the train is moving. I want you to be a passenger. I don't want you to be run over by it." And